Well, hey, howdy, hi. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by to join me today. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ellie, and I'm a witch. And this over here is my teaching assistant, Andy. And today is Tuesday, and on my channel, that means it is tea time and true crime. I forgot my tea, but I got it now. Okay, what are we, we're talking about, I'm sorry, I'm back to professionalism. We are talking about the Circleville letters, which the title of this video says the Circleville hate mail because it's funny, but it is still a true crime case and it does involve a murder, so not that funny. I also, this is the last time I'm going to mention it, I do have 2 new series coming out on my channel for this year, and then another one that I'm hoping to continue, but I will talk about those at the end of the video for anybody interested. I also talked about them yesterday and on Sunday, so maybe you don't need to hear it. Okay, so this unsolved mystery dates back to 1977 in Circleville, Ohio. On March 3rd, 1977, Westfall High School Superintendent Gordon Massey received a letter. It was handwritten in a very distinct style. The letter accused Gordon of having an affair with a married bus driver. The letter demanded that Gordon confess to the school board. The next day, another letter was sent to the Westfall School Board. This one detailed the affair. What was weird about the letters was that both were postmarked Columbus, Ohio, which is 25 miles north of Circleville. The bus driver in question was Mary Gillespie. Now, she had found a letter in her mailbox with the same handwriting, accusing her of having an affair with Gordon. Now, in this letter, the writer claimed to be watching Mary and her children and stated that everyone concerned had been notified and everything will be over soon. Due to the concerning content, Mary did show her husband Ron, but denied the affair. Later into March of the same year, Ron received his own letter. This one told him that the affair rumor was true, and he needed to admit that to the Westfall School Board. It told him that the consequences of not coming forward would be death. The couple decided to just keep the letters a secret. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived for Ron. This one said, "You have had 2 weeks and done nothing. Make Mary admit the truth and inform the school board." At this point, both Ron and Mary had received letters with threats towards their children if Mary didn't come clean. It wasn't just letters, though. The family had begun receiving phone calls, and signs had been posted on Mary's bus route. These signs made explicit references to their young daughter. Now, Mary suspected a fellow bus driver, David Longberry. He had expressed romantic feelings for her, and she had rejected him. Mary and Ron were invested in getting to the bottom of this mystery, so they contacted Ron's sister and her husband, Karen and Paul Freshour. Paul also told his own sister about the letters as well, but only the 5 of them knew the whole story. Mary told everyone about her suspect, so they decided to write their own letter to David, saying they knew it was him and to stop. The letters then stopped for a few weeks, so the gang thought the whole thing was over. But then the letters started back up again. On the night of August 19th, 1977, Ron got a phone call that made him furious. He told his daughter that the call had come from the letter writer. He grabbed his gun, ran to his truck, and took off. The truck was found at 10:35 that night, crashed into a tree. Ron was inside, but he had died of major internal injuries. Most residents of Circleville did not believe it was an accident, but rather murder. The theory was backed by the letters that threatened his life. Paul believed that Ron was murdered because he knew the identity of the letter writer. A few more points towards murder. Ron's blood alcohol content was 0.12, which is 1.5 times higher than the legal limit, but Ron was not known to be a heavy drinker. And Ron's gun was found under his body and had fired a round between the house and the crash site. Sheriff Dwight Radcliffe originally suspected foul play. There was even a suspect in the case who was polygraphed. Apparently, he passed, and as a result, he was never publicly identified. The sheriff changed his mind after the medical examiner, Dr. Ray Carroll, found how high the blood alcohol content was, and instead said he believed it was a drunk driving accident. Now, apparently, the sheriff was running for president of the National Sheriff's Association, meaning he had motive to cover up the murder. It doesn't look good when an unhinged, unidentified letter writer threatening and murdering people runs around your town. The letter writer was displeased by the lack of investigation, though, writing more letters that claimed the sheriff covered up Ron's murder and several more that accused Dr. Carroll of sexually abusing young children. Letters regarding Ron's death and the murder cover-up were being sent to Mary, citizens in town, to local businesses, to schools, No one was safe from these letters. This scared people. The letter writer knew things, dark things about people, that the letter writer had no way of knowing. As this is happening, Paul still advocated for justice for Ron and even filed a report requesting the FBI to investigate. After Ron's death, Mary and Gordon began a public relationship, which led to more vicious threats, especially towards Mary's daughter. Many years later, on February 7th of 1983, Mary saw a sign posted on a fence on her bus route. This sign was handwritten and had an obscene message about Mary's now 12-year-old daughter. She stopped and pulled the sign off the fence and noticed it was tied to a box, so she took both home. Inside the box was a gun. She immediately took the box to the sheriff's office, and they were able to determine that the box was rigged so that the gun would go off when the sign was pulled down. For whatever reason, the gun didn't trigger when Mary removed the sign, though. The sheriff's office was able to determine who the gun belonged to, and that person was Paul Freshour. Now, Paul claimed that the gun had been stolen weeks before and denied setting the trap. The problem was he didn't report the gun missing, and there was no evidence to support his claims. Now, here's where things get a little messed up. Paul was told to copy the letters and try to emulate the handwriting. In standard handwriting comparison in cases like this, you ask the suspect to write normally and then you compare the samples to the evidence. Regardless of those results, Paul failed a polygraph test, and Karen, his now ex-wife, told police that Paul had written the letters to Mary. It wasn't that simple though. Karen and Paul had recently gotten a divorce, and it was not an amicable split. Karen had cheated, and Paul was awarded custody of their 3 children. As a result of the divorce, Karen had to move into a trailer in Mary's backyard, so she clearly had motive to frame Paul. She also would have had access to the gun. Now she claimed that she had seen the letters that were written, but also had access to unwritten letters, but was unable to produce these letters when the sheriff requested, saying she had disposed of them. Paul did have an alibi for the day the gun trap was set, having been at home due to work being done. Paul was also fully cooperative with law enforcement and was only connected to the letters by his ex-wife. However, using Karen's testimony, the copied letter, the failed polygraph test, and the gun in the box, Paul was charged with the attempted murder of Mary. He was not charged with sending the letters, but they were used as evidence in the trial. Unfortunately, and despite having no physical evidence linking Paul to the letters or the box, he was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 7 to 25 years. It seemed that the letter writer was finally caught, until the letters started again. Even Paul received a letter. That one saying, "Now when are you going to believe you aren't getting out of there? I told you 2 years ago. When we set them up, they stay set up. Don't you listen at all." Obviously, it is possible to send letters from prison, so Paul was sent to solitary confinement with no access to paper, pen, or the mail. Yet the letters continued. Paul's cell was regularly searched. He was strip searched, and all of his mail was examined. Eventually, the warden wrote a letter to Karen to tell her it wasn't possible Paul was sending any letters. Another thing to note is that Paul was imprisoned in Lima, Ohio, and the letters were still postmarked Columbus, meaning that unless Paul had an accomplice, it was impossible for him to have sent the letters. In 1993, the show Unsolved Mysteries was going to air a segment about the Circleville letters. Before filming even began, a postcard was sent to the producers. It said, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. If you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay. The Circleville letter writer." The producers did not care and went ahead with the episode. The episode includes an interview with Paul, who had just been released on parole. The postcard ended up being one of the last communications sent from the letter writer, and no letters were sent after 1994. Now, in August of 2021, the CBS show 48 Hours aired an episode that claimed to have finally identified the letter writer. Forensic document examiner Beverly East compared the letters to Paul's known handwriting. She found several links to the letter writer's handwriting and Paul's. She did find points of difference as well, though. However, more than 100 quirks of Paul's handwriting did match. Not all experts agree Paul is responsible, though. Former profile Mary Ellen O'Toole doesn't think that there is enough evidence to say Paul is the letter writer. In particular, she points to the letters that were written while Paul was in prison. It was physically impossible for Paul to write and send the letters. It is noted that there were only a few letters sent when Paul was in prison for 10 years and hundreds sent prior to his incarceration. Mary Ellen believes that the letters were written by a woman and that the letter writers were not well educated. Paul had 3 college degrees and a master's. Some last things to note about the case. Paul was released in 1994 after spending a decade in jail. He maintained his innocence until his death in 2012, even having a website dedicated to professing his innocence. In December of 1993, Dr. Carroll was charged with 12 counts of gross immorality, sex crimes, corruption of a minor, pornography, obscenity, and indecent exposure. David Longberry raped an 11-year-old girl in 1999. He went on the run and is still currently a fugitive. The letter writer had also made accusations against Roger Klein, the prosecutor who convicted Paul, but those claims are more difficult to prove. He was accused of having an affair with a teacher and then having her murdered when he found out she was pregnant. There was some random Ohio couple who confirmed the story to a news station. However, there is no evidence beyond that. When Paul was serving his time, a bus driver came forward. They had seen a large man with sandy hair in a yellow El Camino standing at the side of the box and sign on February 7th, 1983, about 20 minutes before Mary found the sign. The driver was unable to see his face because he turned away as she passed. Now, Paul is not a large man. He has dark hair, and so it is clear it wasn't him. Karen's boyfriend at the time was a large man with sandy hair, and her brother drove an El Camino. The sheriff's office chose not to follow up on the tip. And that is all of the information that we have available on that case. Super interesting. Something I had never heard of, but it was really interesting to research. It is unfortunate that there does seem like a little bit of police corruption, just because it was easier to ignore it while he was running for president. At this point, because there doesn't seem to be any fingerprints, DNA collected, anything that could help us, I am going to assume that it will be unsolved for the rest of time, which is kind of unfortunate, but I wish that Paul had gotten some justice, because it definitely seems like a setup by his ex-wife. But yeah, as I said at the beginning of this video, I do have 2 new series coming out on this channel. I will preface this by saying I don't believe in astrology. I do know that I'm a Capricorn, and that's about all that I know, and I don't really have an interest in knowing anything beyond that. But I do know that a lot of people do care, especially when it comes to true crime cases. A lot of them care what the killer's zodiac sign is. Not my thing, but if it's yours, great. So I'm doing one zodiac astrology series on my channel, and that will be 1 video every month. That is just about it is one astrology video every month that will be a killer based on the zodiac for that month. This month I'm going to be talking about Dean Coral, who was a Capricorn, and that video will be released on January 19th because that's my mom's birthday and I think that's really funny. And then I will just go next month, I will talk about an Aquarius killer and so on, all leading up to December, where I will be talking about the Zodiac killer to kind of round out the series. And then the other series that will be new to my channel is I'm going to be starting to review books. I'm an avid reader. It is one of my favorite hobbies and one of my favorite pastimes, and it always has been. And so I think that it'll be a good outlet for me, because if I don't talk to you guys about books, then my family gets to hear the whole plot and all of my commentary every single time I read a book. And I read a lot of books, so they're getting a little annoyed with me. So, because I enjoy listening to book reviews, I thought that I might as well make my own so that I can talk to people who want to listen to what I have to say. And I'm going to start with the book, The Wife Between Us. Fair warning, I did not enjoy this book in the slightest, and so it is a rather scathing review. It is currently 24 pages. I have not started recording it yet. I will be recording it tomorrow from whenever I recorded this, and I am guessing that it will be about an hour to 2 hours long. I make no promises, definitely could be shorter. I doubt it would be longer, but it definitely could be shorter. And yeah, it's just going to be going through the book, my commentary on it, and then kind of my final conclusions on it. I do have other books planned, some that I don't like. I definitely will. That's the next one that I talk about, is one that I really don't like. But I do want to talk about books that I do enjoy. My favorite book is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and then followed very, 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 very closely by by Frankenstein, and so I would happily talk about either one of those books at some point as well. It's just a lot easier to criticize books that I don't like. But yeah, so if you're at all interested in listening to me review a book, please check that out. I don't make any promises as to when that video will be posted, just because it is going to be a lot to film and a lot to edit, and so it just will come out when it comes out. I'm hoping that by the end of January that will be out, and then I can start working on the second book that I will be talking about. Anyways, that was a lot of rambling. I hope that you enjoyed the case. If you have any extra information, please let me know. Any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye!